Welcome to Girl Dad Conversations. Join us as we dive into the heartwarming, hilarious, and sometimes challenging journey of raising strong, confident daughters. Tune in for lively discussions, heartfelt stories, and share insights that celebrate the unique bond between fathers and their daughters. Whether you're a seasoned dad or just starting out, our podcast is your go-to source for inspiration, advice, and a whole lot of fun. Subscribe now and be part of our amazing community of girl dads. All right, fellas, welcome back. Girl Dad Conversations.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Well, it's a topic I wanted to talk about, and hopefully you guys will want to talk about it as well. So indulge me a little. I want to talk about daughters and discipline.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I'm throwing it out there because I want to say, that's probably, a big challenge for me, how I handle that. So I'm interested in learning from each of you and just to see how you guys handle it. What do you think?
Sounds good, but we probably got to take it back to the beginning.
Yeah.
Right, because all of our, tactics and the way that we live and the way that we discipline our ladies is probably predicated on how it started for us.
Yeah.
Discipline in our house as kids and growing into men. So we probably got to take it back there.
All right.
Yeah.
So Ron, let's talk about that.
Well,
When you're growing up,
Yep.
what was discipline like in your house?
It's
Because we know you were in trouble.
Listen,
We know that.
it's spelled with a capital D.
So, capital D. Dad or discipline?
Discipline. I have three brothers, so that context probably matters. And my dad
Yeah.
is I'll call him a man's man, for sure. And we have a Southern upbringing. So that probably kind of paints the picture of the household somewhat. Caring, loving, but don't play, right? At least early on. My oldest brother is quite a bit older, and my younger brother's a lot younger than me, so it's kind of me on my own for a while. So I didn't get into trouble a lot, believe it or not, because I found ways to navigate and learn, and even at a young age, because I was the only child in many circumstances, I was around a lot of adults. So I had to learn how to navigate adult environments at a young age, and so they would call me a little grown-up.
Yeah.
And so when you're doing that, you're not getting in trouble a lot because you're learning how to talk to and be very respectful, and I did get in trouble at times for sure.
Yeah.
But it wasn't often.
Right.
When I did, there was a belt early on. My last whooping was when I was 11.
Must have been a good one.
It's
you
because
remember.
it was because of my reaction, I believe,
Oh.
which I didn't cry.
Oh.
I was, because at that point in my mind, I'm like, I was pretty
I'm a
much
grown
like,
man. I can deal
this
with
ain't
this.
work
Yeah,
for me.
yeah.
Right. I got it.
There was a valid reason. My cousin and I decided we were gonna throw knives at the door.
What?
So we was just flinging them and putting holes in the door. And
In your own home?
in my own home.
Ninja.
Okay.
Yeah, because nobody's caught walking into anything like that. But this is
Okay.
how we passed the time in the summer. We were
Okay.
just flinging butcher knives at the door.
Oh.
None of them stuck, but there was a whole lot of marks. So I earned that one 1,000%. But my response, I think my pops was like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I got to move on from this and find other ways to discipline you. So the belt was used, not frequently. But there was definitely you will respect in this house.
Right.
That was 1,000% going to be the way we rolled.
Yeah.
And I learned that early. That's how it was in my house, man.
Yeah.
So I had to.
Yeah, ours was similar, right? Respect was definitely a value in the house that we were going to hold to the highest level.
Yeah.
My dad was a military man, so there was a little bit of that. We also had what I would describe as community moms, right? You can go to anybody's house and get it. Growing up with my boys, doing anything out in the neighborhood, we can get it that way.
Yeah.
But I was what I would say, quote unquote, in trouble a lot, but that was because I was more of a curious kid. I was always testing boundaries and doing things. So I find myself in, different situations. I'll save you from those stories, but different situations. We'll just say that.
Yeah.
But the discipline would come either the physical side of it, or even worse, like just have these conversations of disappointment, right? Disappoint my parents, right?
Yeah.
And that sometimes would be
Yeah.
the psychological scar that would sting more than the actual physical discipline. But I remember you said 11 was the last time you got that whooping, that taste of that belt. I remember mine. I was probably 11. It was probably around that 10, 11, 12. I don't remember exactly what it was, the age. But me and my brother were at the laundromat, and I thought it was a good idea, passing the time, to strike matches and throw it in the trash can. Nothing's really gonna catch on fire, burn down, right? It's just, just strike a match and throw it in the garbage can, watch the little flames go out. And me and my brother's just sitting there doing this. Now my brother, his peripheral, he's supposed to be looking out for me, right, while I'm doing this, right? So I'm just striking matches, throwing, and my mom walks by, and my brother looks up, but he don't say anything, right? Because he speaks because his mom's. Mom's comes in there, and I won't forget this for a number of reasons. One, the fact that I got tore up for it.
Yeah.
But my mom's reaction was predicated on something that happened to her when she was a kid. One of my uncles got severely burned in a house fire. So when she saw that, she went back to her childhood, right? And so the punishment was a little bit longer than what it probably would have been on average, right?
It was so personal.
But I was like, okay, we're not doing that again.
Right? We're done with matches.
But there was balance. I say all that to say there was balance, right? It was sometimes it was a physical discipline with a whooping or what have you, but majority of the times it was more of the let's sit down and have this conversation. And those are the ones where it was like, man, really let someone down, really disappointed them. But a little bit of mix. But I guess the thing that I would say that's a little bit maybe additive to what Ron said is that there was an aspect of discipline that was more community-based when I grew up, right? Either my aunts, I have 8 aunts and uncles, so a big family. So anywhere you were at, you were subject to community rules in that way. And then outside in the neighborhood, my boy Cedric's mom's, Mike's mom, Mike Anderson's mom, Chris Johnson's mom. So all my boys, there was a certain expectation we had in the community. So we had it at the house, we had it from the family, and then your extended community. But it could be both, either the physical or sort of, sit down and have that talk. But respect was always based on respect.
Big time.
Okay.
Fire is That was one. That's the first double whooping I remember.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for me, I do have a story that may align to fire, but
Man,
not quite there.
Pyromaniac.
Well, hey, mine is a little different. Okay. You're going to see where it leads.
Okay.
But, so for me, growing up now, and this may be a shock, but my dad never whooped me. Never. That's just not something he had to do with me. And it's not because I may not have gotten into things. I didn't get into things when I was with him. So my parents weren't together, but if I'm with him, I didn't get into anything. So there's really not much reason to get a whooping. But there were times I got into fights, and he would have to have a talk with me and be like, hey, I understand you got to, defend yourself, but hey, let's ease back on all that fighting, but it was never a whooping. It's to your point, Rich. It was the talk alone, because he never had to do it. It was like,
I really didn't want to do that. But I hear you talking, but I really didn't want to do that. But
yeah, it'd be like that. Man, I didn't even want that talk. My mother, on the other hand, another story, whole different story. I can remember the last time she whooped me, and it was because I was up in my room, bored, and I kept dialing 911 and hanging up. So it was no fire, was nothing going on.
Yeah.
I just.
What did you think that meant, dialing 911? Were you aware of what that call actually did?
I thought the call only did anything if I needed to say something.
Okay.
But what they ended up doing was calling back.
Yeah.
And I was trying to be smart and answer the phone. Is your parent there? Hold on.
Oh.
And so I was upstairs, she was downstairs, and she picks up the phone. And the next thing I know, she flies up the stairs and she's standing in my doorway. And of course, my eyes are huge.
Oh, yeah.
And you can imagine what happened after that.
Yeah.
I didn't want to see her phone for a while. Even though I had a phone in my room, I didn't want to see it for a while. And after that, I probably slept to the point she had to wake me up and say, get up so that you can go to sleep tonight. That's how bad that whooping was.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Ooh, wee.
Yeah.
Y'all ever try to put on extra clothes so it wouldn't hurt as much?
Nah, not that I can remember standing out like that. But I used to, when you have to go pick your own switch, do a lot of due diligence around what switch.
Yeah.
So even if it wasn't closed, I was always trying to figure out the way
Yeah.
to navigate around it. Like, but those community sort of discipline tactics, there also used to be community whoopings. Like me and my brother getting it, so I'm like, okay, let me get it. Let him get his first, right? So mom be tired or whatever.
Yeah,
so second. She might catch that second win. So
Right,
we had to figure out, with what we did,
Yeah.
is it going to be more on the front or the back, right? To, be strategic around how you position yourself, right? But not so much the clothes, but I definitely tried to find whatever manipulation tactics I could find to get around it.
No, I feel. I'd be remiss to not mention Mom because she had her way of discipline as well. There was one time we were in a grocery store, and I think she popped me for something. So there were those moments where I'm talking back or something, and she popped me for something, and this person in the store decided to tell her, "You don't hit him." And she looked at them and said, "I will hit you." And I don't remember anything else from that story. I just knew I was not safe. And so I think that's what kept me from really messing with them.
You couldn't get no help.
Right. Like I said, they love me. I know that. And it was a lot of love. And you hear even the story you told. It was like that fear of, I've seen this before. I see how this plays out. So I'm going to come and protect you. The way I protect you is I'm whooping you to say,
I'm going to give you that mental marker.
that's it.
Right.
You will never do this again. And so there was that in the house.
Yeah.
Tons of love. But they also, you knew, like, you don't play with certain things.
Yeah.
So now if you think about what we just rehashed growing up, you saying putting on extra clothes, Rich remembering, how his mama lit in, me waking up from maybe I got knocked out, maybe I don't know. But now we think about raising our daughters. Do you look at disciplining them the same way that you were disciplined, or is that a different story for you today than it was when you were growing up?
Hey, go ahead, Rich.
It's evolved over time. It has. So I've got what we call the older Neils, middle Neils, and little Neil. And my oldest grew up with me and my ex, right? And then middle Neil and little Neil grew up with me and my wife. So for my oldest, there wasn't a lot of physical discipline. She was a good student, followed the rules, all that. So I didn't have to have a lot of decision making around what my discipline tactics would be with her, right? Because if she was the type of child that if you had a conversation with her, she jumped right back to straight and narrow because she was more a rule follower already. Middle Neil and little Neil is a little bit different, different. And so my wife is definitely one who is not around physical discipline. I grew up with it, and that was really the first time where I could, had a decision to make on whether it was physical or mental. And I do think being a girl dad has had something to do with my perception of being more of a physical disciplinary versus, mental or otherwise.
Yeah.
But there have been a couple times that I've had to, kind of give them a little tap, little correction.
Okay.
But I'd say wholly I probably am more around, coaching and other things than the physical sort of it.
Got it.
It's kind of shaped the way I think about discipline now with my ladies. But early on I give them a little tap, but I think of it more as like a correction. Like if you're driving in traffic, I was giving them more speed bumps if they got outside their lane, right? Not a full-on barrier like my mom would offer,
Right, yeah.
but a little bit of speed bumps. So give them a little tap, a little flick or something here and there, but not.
So it's not the let me
nothing
get the
what I
belt
got.
or
No,
the switch or the the drop cord.
No. But I will say it's probably that way. One, because of my wife's beliefs around discipline.
Right. Yeah.
But two, probably because I have girls versus boys. I don't know if that makes it right or wrong, but that's just kind of the evolution that I've been on.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you?
That's the key word for me is evolution.
Yeah.
There's so much I learned from my folks, and then obviously now you get married, and my wife is bringing how she was brought up and all that, and it came together. So that's, even in the midst of being a parent, I've evolved. So in the beginning, right, we're both just taking from what we knew or learned in our household. And that's where we started. So, we definitely, there were some, I call them speed bumps or light taps. Nothing too big.
Yeah.
But definitely, probably like toddler years, correction with, with a spanking was something that happened. Not often.
Yeah.
But it didn't really, there was a time where it didn't feel right for me.
The physical side didn't feel right?
The physical discipline. And I think it was because I'm a girl dad and my size and my baby girl and there was just a switch for me and I just didn't do it anymore. So Kieran or my youngest wouldn't have gotten that type of discipline nearly as much maybe as my oldest, and neither a lot from me like that. So what I've done is it's definitely more from me conversation, and there's even now, like when I talk to them about something, they can tell when I'm disappointed.
So Ron, I heard you say something about when you had to give a little tap or something, there was something that you said about your size and what sort of effect that might have had between you and your daughter. But was that because you didn't want them to have a mental marker that their dad was actually the one dishing the physical punishment out, or you just didn't want them to have that general perspective around men potentially doing that to them?
Yeah, I think it was neither.
Oh, okay.
I actually think it was more, that was one variable. So I'm a lot bigger than them, and I was also questioning whether I needed to do that in order to teach.
Get the correction you needed, yeah.
And I understood why my parents did it, because that's what they would have grown up, learning.
Right.
And I understand some context behind that as far as protection and, and all of that. It probably goes back to slavery and beyond. But did I need to continue that in order to teach? And then I really think it was me thinking about what's the goal, as well as I'm huge in comparison to them. I believe that I'm not doing it that hard.
Yeah.
But is that really how it's being received?
Yeah.
So I'm like, I can't do this, you
Right,
know.
yeah.
And so for me, it just became like that's not how I'm going to teach them.
Yeah.
Right. Now that's not to say that was the same for my wife at that time.
Yeah.
And there were definitely moments where they're using the restroom in their pants, and I'm like, let's get a chart. And my oldest daughter told my wife, I don't care about that chart. And my wife said, I don't either. And they went at it. And then you're right. So that when my way of responding obviously was the chart. And I probably would have had a conversation because at that age I was like, okay, I'm, and that's pretty young, pretty obviously.
Yeah.
But to be fair, your wife's correction was not about the chart. It was about the respect between the relationship.
And
of
I
mother
get
and
it,
daughter.
and I totally get it. And you know what? She handled it, and she heard nothing from me.
Yeah.
Right.
So it was me more personally.
Yeah.
Like this is not how I'm going to do it. And then she evolved too. We both did. We learned as parents. We were new parents. Man. We didn't know.
Yeah.
So I think that was more. I didn't think through like as a dad or as a man. How do I want you to receive it? I do, however, think about the influence I have on how they receive and interact with males.
For sure. Yeah.
I do think about that.
Yeah.
And I think discipline plays a role in that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What about you?
Yeah, I would say for me, my oldest, it was never even really a question. She really didn't get into much, and so I didn't really think about it. Except this one time where we had just taken something out of the oven, and I said, hey, don't touch that, it's gonna burn you. 2 seconds later, she touched it. And of course, I'm like, okay, I just said don't touch that. So I thumped her. And that's the extent of my discipline, I thought. But I realized what it did to her from a perspective of, wait a minute, he just thumped me. And from that particular day and that point on, she stood next to her mother the entire time. And so for me, it was heartbreaking, like, okay, maybe I shouldn't have thumped her. But I mean, it wasn't a hard thump, it was just and that wasn't something she was used to from me. Because normally I'm the one like, we won't worry about it. But I guess I was overly concerned about the danger of doing something like that, touching something that hot, and it causing more damage than not. and you're not receiving the message of that's hot, don't touch that.
Right.
But for my youngest, I mean, I probably have thumped her on a pamper when she was little, but she don't know me to be the one that's going to do the discipline. Mom is going to do it. Now, I will talk to you, and you have to sit and listen to that talk, and you have to communicate. But mom is going to be the one that puts it in, and that's going to be a 50-50 with them, whether they receive that or not. But that is definitely a hard one for me to be able to say, I'm going to do it the way it was done to me. I'm just not that person. I just can't. I can't do that.
Yeah, I had a little balance around that, like, cause I understood, like you said, Ron, I understood why, for generations, at least from my point of view, why physical discipline was very prevalent in African Americans, dating back to slavery, whatever. I do think that there is something about the sharpness of, just a little tap or something, like right now, this is important.
Right.
This thing you did, we got to stop right now, versus hey, let's talk about, so I do think there's something in, maybe not being demonstrative about it, but a little bit of just like, that's a marker to pay attention to it. But you both said something about, talking to or talking back. So, and you talk about Anjali, and, I don't care about that.
Yeah,
so,
I don't know what, I was not in the car to save that child. If I could, I would be like, you care right now. You may not care later.
I need you to care.
Abort. But as it relates to talking back, like that's a specific. There's tons of actions that kids might do that would warrant some discipline. But talking back is something that probably all dealt with on some level. But how have you dealt with back talk?
I do not like it. It is like, to me, it's so respect is a big thing in the household. I just shared, household growing up, that was the thing. So it's so disrespectful.
Yeah.
And so I lean in on that big time. The thing that my girls don't want is me to like give them this full speech on why. And I am good at that. I mean, your skill. Man, I could go so deep and everything. I'm like, this is what, and then I just keep it.
Surprised.
I keep it going and going. And like, okay, I get it, Daddy. Like, I get it. So, but that
They'd rather take the whooping at that point.
They probably prefer a whooping. Yeah. So that I do not like the back talk. And so there have been times where I see it happen. I'm like, stop, stop. Take a deep breath.
Yeah.
We're not going to do that. We can have a real conversation, but that's not how we're going to do this. So that's how I usually handle it. I stop it right there, because you getting your word out, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
So that's me.
Yeah. I would say usually my first response is say what? Or excuse me, or because I want to make sure I heard what I heard. And I don't want to mistake it, because I know sometimes you may say something that has nothing to do with what was just said. You could be talking to yourself in a way that says, yeah, I messed up or something. So I first clarify, like, who you talking to? Let's get that out there.
Talking to we all know that one.
Right. So then once I get to that and I understand, okay, that was a shot for me, then there is a conversation. And I'm more like your approach, Ron. It's more of a, that's not what we're gonna do. There's no point in that. If there's something you want to share that. But once something's been said and, hey, here's the direction we're going, then I expect that's the direction we're going. And I'll tell you, a lot of times what's most challenging, I would say, in our house is when it's done to the mother. And oftentimes, you probably are familiar with this, but she moves around the house like it's like this. So if she's saying something and she's telling you to do something, she's off to the next thing. And then that back talk or mumble comes, and usually I'm the one that hear it. There are times, don't ask me how, she's downstairs, they're upstairs, she can hear that. I have no idea.
That mom ear, boy.
Right.
Yeah, that's a whole different kind of spidey sense.
That eardrum is tapped in, boy.
And so then the conversation changes, because then it's like, hey, you really can't talk to your mom like that.
Yeah.
I mean, she bends over backwards to do everything, not just for them, but for the entire household. So it's like one of those things, nah, that's not what we're gonna do.
Right.
So that's the way I approach it. And what I try not to do, which I've been known to do, is raise my voice from time to time to say, hey, don't talk to your mom like that.
Yeah.
And over years that has slowed down, and it could be because they understand more of how I feel about that, rather than it just being something you have to do. But that's kind of how I handle it, I should say. What about yourself?
Yeah, at our house, it's been an evolution, I'll say. Like, first of all, I would classify, talking back as something that isn't constructive, right? Because we want to have open dialogues and conversations around any and all things, because we want to be a safe space for them to have, conversations that are tough or difficult. But talking back, I view those as things that are not constructive. And so, again, respect being something that we hold as a value in our house around the people who are providing roof, shelter, food, safety, security, all these things. But I tell my girls, right, was that a statement I offered you or a question? Because if it wasn't a question, we don't do back and forth at all.
Right.
So if it's a question, I'm welcoming something. If it was go do this, it's go do this, right?
Right.
And so I just try to be, simple and direct around it. Now, if there is something that you want to offer constructive to the statement that I offered, then by all means, let's have a dialogue. But if it's like we're never doing that. 100% of the time, we're never doing that. Now, I could get better at how it is I come at them about, is it a question or a statement? Because sometimes it's a few decibel levels higher than what the situation might warrant. I'm working on it. I'm working on it.
We all are.
But about the back and forth, we don't do that. Because if you look around where we are, none of you put this here, right? And so you're going to respect the people who bust their butt to do that for you. And always know that we have your best interest.
Absolutely.
Right? So that's what I say. Was that a question or a statement?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not that soft manner.
No, it never comes out the way we talking about it here.
No,
we all know that.
Yeah, absolutely not. We don't want to blow anybody's eardrum down.
No.
The reality of how it may come out. But
No.
I take point in everything that's said, and I love the way you put it, where it was a statement or a question.
Yeah.
And I might end up using that, because I like that approach. Because we do get oftentimes where, hey, you need to take trash out in your room. It's overflowing. Why is this even in here? Well, that's really not where we need to go with that. Let's just get it done.
We're not engaging on that.
There's talking back, then there's negotiating. And my youngest is a negotiator. So I may make a statement like, you going to bed at 11. And she'll say, how about 11:30? And that's not talking back.
No,
I'm good with that.
Yeah.
But there's somewhere, listen, that's gray. Because it's in between, because you also could make that statement about taking the trash out. Like, okay, I'll take it out, but give me 30 minutes. Like, no, I need it out now. That was a statement, not a question. So there's balancing that. And then also, you want your children, I believe, I want my kids certainly to be ones that challenge the status quo, because we ask them to do that. So how are you navigating them doing that, but listening to your law like that? It's not always, it's obviously not perfect. There's no perfection there, but how do you navigate that?
I think ultimately what I hear you landing on is the balancing between them having respect for what's happening versus fear versus just trying to steamroll over the law, right? It's a tricky balance, right? It's a tricky balance, because how they could use the same words to answer why they're not taking the trash out. Dad, I would love to take my trash out at 11:30 versus 11.
Right.
Or, man, I'm gonna get to that at around 11:30. Right? Same words, right? So I think it's really about how it is, at least for me, how they offer that energy to me that balances, is this being disrespectful? Is this trying to steamroll it? But I also don't want at the same time, if I say take the trash out, them to cower and feel like their whole world is going to cascade down on them out of fear that dad is, he said, take the trash by 11 and it's 10:59 and I haven't done it yet. And, oh my God, I'm about to get tore up. So it's I think it's some sort of tricky balance around respecting what it is that we expect from them, them not steamrolling over whatever law is being disrespectful, but also I don't want them to live a life of fear of any sort of rules they're participating with, whether they're in our house, whether they're at school, whether they're somewhere else. I want them to be able to, on some level, respectfully challenge whatever's offered to them. But so that's how I would look at it. Like, I'm trying to pay attention to what the context is that they're offering, right?
Yeah.
You could tell, like, okay,
Yeah.
we're not doing that. Oh, but actually, you know, is there a reason why I have to take it out right now, Dad? Can I get a few minutes because I got this going on? Oh,
Right.
Fine, yeah.
I love
please
that.
do that, yeah.
And we're teaching them that,
Yeah.
how to do it.
Yeah.
Right? But you got to give them opportunities to do that in order to teach it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agreed. But, you know, just like in life, there are certain things that are non-negotiable.
Fair?
And we have to show them that part of it too.
Yeah.
And so, like, for example, if we stick with the trash example and somebody says, well, if the response is, well, the trash ain't being picked up today, why I got to take mine out? That's a whole different story.
That to me is talking back.
Right,
Yeah,
that's a whole different
Versus
story.
having a conversation with, right?
Right,
sure,
right.
for
So we're
sure.
all going to receive that in a whole different way.
Yeah.
But there is, I do believe there is always room to have a conversation.
Yeah.
And to Rich's point, it's going to be, what is the message you're sending me?
Well, to me, that's what spankings took away, though.
On you, buddy.
That's what
Well, I need that back.
it took away the conversation, right? And maybe that's okay depending on the situation. But a spanking says, we ain't talking about this, right?
Right.
And what I'm saying is navigating, like, you wanting your child to challenge the status quo.
Yeah.
A whooping, there was no challenge. And maybe that was okay in that moment. But the reality is, you know, it doesn't necessarily create an environment of conversation.
It certainly didn't. Not for me as a kid, and it doesn't for me as a parent.
And it's
So-
more about fear then. It becomes more about fear than about, right, learning and growing. And I get it to protect your children in the past, but that's why I'm saying, that's why I had to let it go.
I got a question for you.
Yo.
So if we think about the examples we all gave
Yeah.
of when we got spankings, what were you going to negotiate?
Nothing.
Or what were you going to ask more questions about versus just say, all right, let me just take this L because that's what it is. Playing with matches,
Oh, there was, yeah.
Fair.
throwing butcher knives.
You was trying out for the circus or something later?
Listen, man.
I don't know what you was doing with the
Listen,
knives.
had I gotten good. You see, X-Throwing was a thing, man.
And then even for myself, calling 911, because I can even remember what my mom said. She was like, you wouldn't call 911 if we needed them. Why are you messing with them now?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if I think about those examples, there's a lot less conversation around those.
That's fair.
Versus,
We was acting up.
But I think that's a good point, Chan, because when I think about, like what I talk about even with my middle Neil and young Neil,
yeah,
when I was offering correction, as I call it, like the speed bump, stay in your lane, it certainly wasn't a situation where I was lighting matches in the garbage can.
right.
But it was hey, this is the marker.
Yes.
So it wasn't something that, at least I felt like with my size and how I might have done it, that it was a painful thing.
Mm-hmm.
And because it is so rare and infrequent,
Yeah.
it's a marker, stop. Like
Yeah.
there's no negotiation, but stop.
Right.
Whereas if I did that at their age, the stop marker would have been more severe,
Yes,
right? But it
yes.
would have been the same marker. So
Yeah.
I feel like,
Yeah.
I've certainly evolved from using that approach in a way that's more amenable to the way that I want my kids to have a relationship with me.
Yes.
But there is at a time, there is a marker.
Yeah.
There's no conversation, stop. But it's just more, I guess, appropriate. I don't know.
Yeah. And are we this way because we have daughters versus if we had sons?
Yeah. I don't really know. I don't really know. If you held my feet to the fire and said pick one or the other, I would say yes. But I don't have a son, right?
I'd say yes.
Yeah.
I'd definitely yes. I wouldn't have made a comment about my size because I got to get it in before he get bigger than me.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence, and the reason I am is because of how my dad was with us,
Okay.
and he really never had to spank any of us, and I just can't explain what it was overall, but we just didn't get into stuff to where it was like,
Yeah.
all right, I'm gonna have to dig in, and so I probably would have began my approach the way he did with us.
Okay.
Because if we got into mischief, for sure, like, going, sitting in the church, and you ain't a member of the church, and you're in there doing, everything that they're doing, and you're telling them you're a member, and you're gonna sign up, and we end up leaving. Mischief. And so he would look at that and be like, all right, don't do that again.
Okay.
But it was not, in a place of, hey, we're out destroying something, or, just really getting into something that you look at and be like, yeah, I'm gonna have to light in on y'all because that's too much. And so that's probably what keeps me a little bit off the precipice of saying, yeah, if it was a boy, yeah, I'm all in. So with that, spank or no spank?
No.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. For me, I would say yes. There's a spanking in there. Not often, but my spanks are thumbs. But mom is definitely gonna do a spank.
That's why I can say no.
You say no because you saw it. On the girls.
On the girls.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So I guess then the question would then kind of drill into how do you ensure that you have that right balance of tough love and still that guidance, and that you're doing it out of respect for each other and not fear of dad is going to clobber me if I don't do X, Y, Z, or if X, Y, Z happens.
I think for me, it's all about keeping your relationship strong, right? If you are communicating with your kids and they understand your value systems, they, I think, understand intrinsically either through your behaviors or through your words when they're testing the boundaries.
Yeah.
So I think for me, it's just about, keeping that communication open so that when you got to get to a place of a balance of a tough love or a conversation, they kind of already know the situations where it's coming. But if you don't have that open and sort of honest sort of dialogue or relationship with your kids, then it looks interesting when stuff could pop up or whatever, because they don't understand the values and the rules. So I think you start with making sure there's some sort of, common understanding of the expectations you have around your house, school, those different things. So they know when they're participating with the edges. So for me, I think it's about that, just making sure that you got a great relationship with your kids and they understand those expectations. So when the tough love comes, they know what they're creating opportunities.
Yeah, it's certainly not an either or for me,
Okay.
right? There are moments where tough love is needed, but generally, gentle guidance is what you can go with, right? And that's because you do have a relationship with them, right? And getting to spend time with them, you learn and you grow together.
Yeah.
It tells you we're growing as parents, man. We didn't know what we was doing. We still don't know half the time what we're doing, so we're growing. So why wouldn't I would even reword it and call it just graceful parenting. And that comes with tough love, right? And so that's how I would look at it.
Tough, gentle guidance.
With grace.
I got one more quick one. What's something that you've tried, maybe not that you're continuing doing, but tried as a parent with your kids that you thought you would never do before you had kids?
Keeping a poo-poo chart. Like, that's what I was doing. And I had my wife make it.
I should have restricted the conversation a little bit more around discipline.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because that was a wide open question. I certainly walked into the poop chart.
Oh, definitely. Who grew up saying I'm gonna do that?
But as I restrict it and bring it back to discipline, I'll offer sort of what I so I don't do it anymore. And done it a couple times, I never thought I would put my kid on a timeout.
Ooh, yeah.
Like before I had kids, I hear about people putting their kids on timeout. Man, come on, we're never doing a timeout with the kids.
Yeah.
But I tried it it's just not me. But that's something that, tried a couple times that I never thought I would do in terms of discipline for the kids. But
yeah, I would probably say timeout because I just never, from looking afar, I never found value in. I'm gonna put you in timeout. Yeah, okay. Because I thought to myself growing up, somebody put me in timeout. Okay.
I mean, yeah.
That was at least to me growing up, I'll take it. I'll take timeout. You mean get away from everybody else? I'll take it.
And for what I just did to get on timeout, the only thing I do is timeout?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thing is, in sports, it's a break. It's a good thing. So
Right. So
now it's not a poo-poo chart, but
Right,
what would you do, or what have you done that you didn't think you'd ever do?
yes.
I hate to do this, but I didn't think about disciplining a lot, right? So so for me, it definitely would have been like around like those passive aggressive kind of things. To me, timeouts are that,
Yeah.
or don't make me take this away from you. But
Yeah.
like really, because if you start to look at all the stuff our kids probably have, it's just going to allow them to focus on the other thing that they have.
Yeah.
So anything passive aggressive like that, I just never thought about that because I didn't grow up in that environment. So that would have been it for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Question: belt, switch, or shoe? Which one of those did you get most growing up?
Belt. Ooh, there was some shoes. Oh, can you throw in one more option?
What's that?
Comb. The thick comb.
Okay, we
one
throw in
handle.
comb.
Plastic? Yeah.
There was a red and a
Yeah.
rainbow
Yeah.
in my house.
Okay, so comb.
It was probably the belt. It was probably. My mom has some accuracy with that shoe, though. I ain't gonna lie. Like, I don't know if she was playing with Robin Hood as a kid or something. But, man,
Like a
my
boomerang.
my mom was great with the shoe game.
Oh, wow.
But belt was
Yeah,
probably.
it's definitely belt and comb.
All right, so I'm going to say mom belt, grandmother switch.
Oh yeah.
And I probably got more switches than I did belts.
Nana was coming with the switch. Yeah. That was that generation.
Right.
Yeah, I'm a little bit younger.
Let's wrap this up and get back on this game. Let's
Okay.
get back on this game.
All right.
All right.
And I'm gone.